Hi.
Hi.
I am so excited to be here today. I'm not just saying this because she's sitting next to me, but Kara is one of my biggest inspirations in the media field. Usually she's the interviewer, so I'm a little nervous about being the interviewer today, but hopefully she'll go easy on me. Kara and I get to work together at Vox Media, where I like to say that Kara, in a field of high performers, is one of the most, or the most high the most high-performing person at our company. Just in the last year alone, she took her very successful podcast, Recode Decode, to 3 times a week, launched another podcast, Pivot with Scott Galloway, managed to create a strong partnership between Recode, the website that she founded, partnering with Vox.com. She ran a very successful code conference last week in Phoenix, Arizona. She writes for the New York Times op-ed section. She also manages to do a television show with the MSNBC called Revolution. And if that's not exhausting enough, she's about to go on tour with her podcast this fall in a series called Unscripted with Kara Swisher. I have no idea when she sleeps, but it is a very impressive resume. On top of that, you all should know Kara is the most influential tech reporter today. And we're here today to really talk about what technology has wrought, and hear a little bit from Kara on both the incredible opportunity that technology has created for all of us and the very serious ramifications technology has created for all of us.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, hi everybody. That was a lot. Okay, I'm leaving. I'm deciding whether to take off my sunglasses or not, but it's super bright, and I have this weird eye thing that people always say, why do I wear them? And I usually say, to avoid intimacy. But I actually do have this, and it's super bright, but I'll take them off maybe in a minute, but I'm not sure.
We'll settle into the interview first. Right, also, cool. It's like your brand. I feel like
it
you
is.
Need to, like,
I was just looking.
Represent it. Okay, so I'm going to start with, last week we were in Phoenix, Arizona at the Code Conference. Mm-hmm. You had executives from Amazon, Netflix, Facebook, Twitter, all on stage, YouTube. Tough interviews, but you set them up for some tough interviews, writing a manifesto before the experience, which you called the reckoning. Mm-hmm. I believe your words were karma's a bitch.
Yeah. They're not my words. They're words that are used.
There were words that you used to describe the situation.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what you meant?
Well, I was going to originally call the piece The Purge, because I thought they deserved that. But if you ever see that movie, I have teenage boys, so they always want to watch The Purge, which I refuse to let them because I'm trying to bend 2 men to my will to be good men in the future. So The Purge is not on their list of things to see. But I was trying to get the idea that tech had so long been celebrated largely by men, people who wrote about them, in this sort of laudatory fashion, adulation, and that it was time to stop pretending that these people were anything other than companies super interested in making a profit by taking advantage of people's data, or allowing people's data to be hacked, or using people as products in order to sell advertising and stuff like that. And so I wanted to sort of take away the idea that they're here for anything else than to make money, just like a bank or a chemical company or anything else, and that the damage that they have done over the past couple of years, which I started writing about a couple of years ago, was something we needed to look at strongly and probably regulate, depending on what the regulation was. And so I was talking about now is the time for the reckoning. Now the problem is that in the interim, when these companies started, they've gotten enormously powerful. That means they can hire lobbyists, that means they can do marketing, they can do all kinds of things to push back against what is inevitably coming, which is a reckoning, where people begin to realize the price of what they've been doing, including not just the data breaches, not just the use of people for their advertising needs, not just the incursions into people's privacy, but also the tools that they've created have created a sort of, have diminished our culture and created an addictive, somewhat depressing situation, especially for girls. Their statistics are very clear where it's going, the impact social media has had on girls especially, and young people. I have 2 teenage boys. And so I wanted to talk about that. And I wanted to talk about what they're going to do about it and then what the rest of us are going to do about it, including our legislators. I
think this is one thing that's always set you apart in really a field that was dominated by men, is that you've really held these powers to account. And you did mention that 2 years ago you started sort of a warning cry that there needed to be some strong regulation. That being said, you just wrote a column recently that said, for the New York Times, that mentioned that you felt the response, regulation, this national conversation is being a bit heavy-handed and possibly not the right path.
Here's what I was worried about. Where have these legislators been this whole time? Where have these regulators been? Some of them have popped up, like Margrethe Vestager in Europe, with some regulations that are a little not right for this country, but still moving in that direction. But for the most part, the FTC has been dormant. I don't know what they've been doing. The FCC has been dormant. State and local legislators have been a little more awake, but just until recently. And so what sort of got me going on this is a column I wrote actually for Recode, where I called tech sheeple. They were sheeple. What happened is they were very not, they put out this idea that they're liberal, but they're not. They're not anything. They have no politics.
They're businesses.
Yes, but they don't have any, they're like, it's this idea that they're socially tolerant, absolutely, but they're not in any way going to speak up, given their enormous power and their enormous wealth, which I think that's their responsibility, because for years they tell you how much they're going to change the world. It's exhausting. If a chemical company said, I'm trying to change the world, you say, shut up, you asshole. Like, are you kidding me? You want to make chemicals and probably poison a lot of us. But tech people do this sort of self-patting on the back almost continually for years now, that things are going to change the world, that somehow a dating app is going to change the world, or a delivery service is going to change the world. It's not. It's just not. It's just, make it nicer for us to be able to get Cheetos quicker, I guess. But so anyway, so I was sort of annoyed by that, and there were big issues that were coming up, and what got me was when they went to see Donald Trump when he was elected. Now look, whatever you think about Donald Trump, and I can't stand him, but a lot of his issues that he talked about during the election were directly at the heart of tech and the ideas that tech said they were for, including tolerance, including immigration, including gay issues, all kinds of things that tech had been out front on, especially immigration. And he said about 82 times on the campaign trail that he was going to put in a travel ban against Muslims. He said it. He said it so many times. And whatever else, he said it so many times, you knew he had to keep the promise to the people who voted for him. And so I kept saying this to tech people. I'm like, he said this Muslim ban thing. Oh, Kara, you don't understand politics. I go, I do. I think I do. I think he said it. I think he's going to, no, we're not. We're going to do something about that if it happens. It's that typical kind of thing. And what they ended up doing was tromping to Trump Tower, right? And acquiescing and saying nothing during that time. The most powerful, there was a meeting. What happened, when tech does anything, they issue a press release. Like everything they do has to be told and vetted. But this time they said nothing. And I'm going to tell the story very quickly.
Please.
I was at a farmer's market in San Francisco. So I was trying to choose between the 9 varieties of kale. And someone called me and said, they're all going to see Trump. And I go, who? And it was like Larry Page and Sheryl Sandberg and Tim Cook and Tim Apple. And the whole bunch of Tim Cook I like. He's been more forthright. A whole bunch of them were seeing, all of them. And because of Peter Thiel, who had brought them together. And so they were going, but they didn't say it. And I was like, you're kidding me. And no reporter had written about it. And so I got on the phone at this farmer's market. I put down the kale. I picked up my phone. And in 10 minutes, I figured out who was going. And they were like, oh, don't tell anyone they're going. And I'm like, what? Don't tell anyone they're going to see the president-elect, this most powerful group of people on the planet. And so I wrote a story saying they're going, just the news story saying they're going. Then I wrote a column that said they were sheeple. And I said that they should be ashamed of themselves for going to see this guy and not saying anything before as a group about immigration and the appalling things he said about immigrants, the Mexicans. It just went on. And this is an industry that grew on immigration. Elon Musk is an immigrant. Sundar Pichai is an immigrant. Satya Nadella is an immigrant. Sergey Brin is an immigrant. They're all immigrants. And like so many people, this industry, that's been one area. And so I wrote this piece saying they should be ashamed of themselves and that they're sheeple if they didn't say anything in advance. The most powerful and richest people on earth somehow went mute. And so I said, these people should be ashamed of themselves. And it was a pretty tough column. And so they all tromp in this meeting, and they sort of skulk in. They kind of went in the back way, which was astonishing. And then they come out, and of course everything was off the record because they were with him alone, which I didn't understand either. And then they said nothing when they left, which was amazing. Like, I thought that the whole thing was just appalling to me. Of course, many of them called me afterwards saying, you know, I really did speak up inside that table. I said something big. And I'm like, fuck you. Just like, fuck, like, I don't care, you know? And so I wrote a piece saying what they said in the meeting, and it was literally like verbatim. The Trump people were like, how did you find out? I'm like, please, these people leak like sieves. So, but I wasn't going to fet them for doing that, because I thought it was cowardly, especially on immigration. And so I ended up having a debate with a lot of them. I said, he's going to do a travel ban. He's going to do it. He's not going to do a travel ban. And one particular person who was there was like, he is not going to do a travel ban. I promise you, I will convince him not to. And I was like, listen, Jesus, you're not going to convince him to do anything. Like, I know you think you're Jesus. You know, they all think like this. The force of my fantastic imaginative personality will, this guy is not going to change his mind. Trust me, he's a 7-year-old grifter. It's not happening. And so he goes, if he does it, I promise to write you an email that said, I'm an idiot. And I said, great, good bet. This is a good bet. Of course, he did it on a Friday night, which is what all grifters do, on a news dump on a Friday night. And I wrote this guy, I was like, where's the email saying you're an idiot, because I'm going to frame it, kind of stuff. And so
did you ever get the email?
Yes.
Okay.
So I have it. It will be displayed later upon my death at my funeral. So it was an off-the-record apology. So anyway, so I was just appalled by it, and that's what got me going.
So obviously, the 2 years since have seen a lot of the technology platforms continue to be used in ways that I think their founders have never intended nor even understood the implications of what would happen with the platform.
Did they not intend it?
I don't know. What do you think?
I do think they intended.
You think that they did?
I think if you don't think of something, you know, if you drive a car 100 miles down a local street, you're going to hit someone. Like, they built these. The reason the Russians, I always say this, the Russians did not hack Facebook. They were customers of Facebook. They did. They're using the platform the way it was built.
Yeah.
Every one of these problems is the way it was built. They built it for speed, virality, and engagement. And when you get that, when you build something for speed, virality, and engagement, you're going to get fake news. You're going to get disinformation. You're going to get abuse on platforms. You're going to get addiction. They build it. I did on a great podcast, please listen to it, with Tristan Harris, about this. This is about addicting you just the way, it's not precisely like cigarettes, but it's in that genre.
Same way. Yeah.
And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And what they should have done is understood the consequences of it and planned for it and made their products that way. But it doesn't work economically if they do it that way.
Maybe it's that they didn't have the foresight to see how these platforms would be used. And now what we're seeing is a lot of them trying to put in place policies internally or solutions internally that will fix some of these issues. But I think that we're seeing, even in some of their public statements, that the problem is too big for them.
No, because Mark Zuckerberg said there's no way my platform was used by the Russians. He said that several years ago, and at the time we all texted him and like, you're an idiot. Of course it was. You know what I mean? We don't even know, but it has been. They tend to what they try to do is, Mark is a particular unusual case because he's actually a lovely guy, you know, and he tries to be thoughtful, but he literally has the imagination of a gnat. And so when you say to him, I swear, not in a mean way, it's not a mean way, it's just like you say to them about Facebook Live, I'm going to use Facebook Live, for example, you say, hey, when I went to see it and other reporters went to see it, we're like, hey, what's going to happen when someone murders someone? What's going to happen when someone commits suicide? What's going to happen? You know, we gave them a list of what's going to happen if, which any like third grade child would understand, right? And they were like, oh, you're a bummer. It's really cool for Chewbacca Mom. And I'm like, no, but not Chewbacca Mom. There's going to be a mass murder on this thing. Fast forward to New Zealand. Yeah. And then they don't know what to do. Then it iterates on the platform. It was on there for 17 minutes. Mm-hmm. This was an attack for, by, and because of the internet. Not, of course, his hatred. He was radicalized online. Now, it's his fault, but he was radicalized online by being able to meet someone. He broadcasted online, he said what he was going to do online, and then it iterated online. He published it, and then they couldn't get it down. They couldn't pull it down. And they tried. Look, people, you know, I just saw Susan Wojcicki's mom is here. Esther Wojcicki was amazing. Susan's trying her best to get this down, but it's too late, like, because of the way the system is built. And so to be able to pull down that, for example, is almost impossible.
So we know the problem. We know that regulation is going to be a painful process when it does come. Are there other solutions that you see? We're all part of the system. We're all complicit in the system. What are solutions that you are seeing out in the space, or companies that are trying a different alternative that are intriguing to you, that state that they're going to try something different?
Tim Cook talks about it a lot. He just gave it a big address. I urge you to listen to it at Stanford about the idea that they built a chaos factory, and he can't believe they don't understand what they've done. It's not true. You can start to look at it honestly and say what you've done, and then try to figure out if your business plan is moved in. If there's no way to not do this with what you've built, or put warnings on these things. There's all kinds of things. You can do regulation, around pricing. You can do regulation around a wide range of things, but you could also do antitrust to break them up. That's one of the concepts of doing it. There's all kinds of tools regulators have to fix this problem, although what it is there's a column about to come out in the Times where I said, because the head of Amazon Web Services said, it's like a knife, it can be used surreptitiously, and you're like, what? I get his point. Like anything, a car can be used as a weapon, but that's not the point, right? And so what they have to start to do is, one is accept what they've done and actually honestly accept it and not be in a press release. The second is to cooperate with good legislation and good regulation that will fix this stuff. And the last thing is, I think it's something that's much harder for them, and we were going to talk about this, is diversity in the ranks of the people who are doing this. The reason why Twitter is a bullying place is because a series of young white men created it. It's just like, it's so clear that they didn't understand bullying. And when I was talking to one Twitter person who got bothered after a while, he's like, oh, that was really hard. Like, wow, I really got attacked on Twitter. And I was like, welcome to the world of women, people of color, and marginalized communities. This is our reality every day, right? And so thank you. But it's not a diverse workforce by any means whatsoever. And not just women, people of a certain age. I'm literally the oldest person in Silicon Valley. It's not, and they consider me and Tim Cook, and we're the scolds. We're scolds. Okay, sure. But they need a diverse group of people that'll say, this is bullying, this is taking advantage of people, this is, like, it doesn't even occur to them as long as they can, like, create yet another service that I told you this joke I tell all the time, like San Francisco is assisted living for millennials. Anything that helps them get their laundry done faster, top of the leg. Yeah. Anything that helps society, we'll get to it.
Right.
And so if it was a more diverse group of people, I am certain that they would not create these products.
You had a few people at Code last week that were thinking about alternatives outside of Silicon Valley.
Anyone outside gets it.
Right, Stacey Abrams being one.
Stacey Abrams rocks. She should be president of the United States yesterday.
What are some of the solutions that are intriguing to you with folks like her, when she's thinking about solutions? And other groups that you've been speaking to?
They can see it for what it is. The money is not attached to their opinion. So that's one thing. And I don't think all these people are motivated by money. They just don't want to be wrong, and they don't want to face some of the damage. They like to celebrate the good of it, and on the whole, tech has been good. But you can say that about oil. You can say, like Scott Galloway pointed this out, guys, chemicals have been good for society, except for all those people who died. On the whole, tech has been good, except for. And so what they tend to do is, like, 99% of it is great, but just 1% is, I'm going to write a column about this because I was fascinated by this concept.
But they can ignore the 1%.
1%, but except 1% is billions and billions and billions and billions of posts. It's not the 1%. I was going to write the real toxic 1%, because even if it's 1%, and it's not, it's much more, it's dangerous. And again, if you have a more diverse outlook on this stuff, if it wasn't such a monoculture in Silicon Valley, and it still is to this day, the numbers just are stubbornly white men of a certain age. There's an expression in tech, crap in, crap out. As we move into AI and automation and everything else, you're going to have people who don't understand problems of regular working people creating automated workforces. Well, who's responsible for those jobs? Like, who thinks about those things? And so that's where I would like them to get to rather than anything else. I'd like them to think about diversity.
Last question.
Sure.
Room full of women. What is your advice for them to push or advocate for change?
Well, women make up more than half of the use of the internet and are not representative in any way to the leadership of it. You know, it's just basically Sheryl Sandberg. That's all who's there. You know what I mean? Like, just it's sad when you think about it. And she shouldn't bear the brunt of everything. I wrote a column about this, that she gets attacked when Mark gets off scot-free. Not scot-free, but mostly. And so I think that you have to think about, you have the power to, in usage of these things, to advocate to your legislators, to talk to these companies about what the changes you want to see in them, so that you have a healthier, healthier children, you have a healthier society. We're not in this twitchy, rage-filled culture that we have right now, and that's what has to change.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you're out there pushing for that change. Thank you so much, Kara.